The sun was starting to set on Pine Street, painting the sky in beautiful shades of orange and pink. Kids were playing in their front yards, and parents were coming home from work in their cars. It was just another normal day in the peaceful neighborhood of Greenwood, or at least that's what everyone thought. A 12-year-old boy was walking home from basketball practice, his sports bag hanging over his shoulder and his favorite blue cap turned backwards on his head. He was tall for his age, with kind eyes and a gentle smile that made everyone in the neighborhood trust him. The local parents often asked him to watch their younger kids at the park, and even the grumpy old man who lived on the corner would wave when he passed by. Today, he was extra tired from practice. Coach had made them run extra laps because they had a big game coming up next week. His legs felt heavy, and all he could think about was getting home to his mom's famous spaghetti and meatballs. The smell was probably already filling their kitchen. It was Tuesday, and Tuesday meant spaghetti night at their house. As he walked, he noticed how the neighborhood was changing with the seasons. The big maple trees were dropping their leaves, creating crunchy piles that younger kids loved to jump in. Halloween decorations were starting to appear on porches, plastic pumpkins, fake cobwebs, and spooky skeletons that made the little ones squeal with excitement. He was almost at his usual stop, the corner store where Mr. P had been selling snacks and sodas for longer than anyone could remember. The neon "Open" sign buzzed quietly, and the bell above the door chimed as customers went in and out. He usually grabbed a chocolate milk and his favorite chips here after practice, and Mr. P would always ask about his grades and basketball games. But something felt different today. Maybe it was the way the shadows were getting longer, or how the wind had picked up, making the leaves dance across the sidewalk. He couldn't put his finger on it, but his grandfather had always told him to trust his gut feelings. When something doesn't feel right, his grandfather would say, "It probably isn't." That's when he noticed the little girl. She was standing near the store entrance, looking lost and scared. She couldn't have been more than 5 years old, wearing a pink backpack with unicorn stickers all over it. Her hair was in 2 messy braids, and she kept looking around like she was trying to find someone she knew. He recognized her from the elementary school near his house. She was in kindergarten there. Sometimes he helped out in the after-school program, teaching younger kids how to dribble a basketball or helping them with their ABCs. She was usually a bubbly, happy kid, always giggling with her friends. But right now, she looked anything but happy. His mom had always taught him to look out for others, especially those who couldn't protect themselves. "We rise by lifting others," she would say every morning before he left for school. It was one of those mom sayings that used to make him roll his eyes, but now he understood what she meant. He was about to walk over and ask if she needed help when something made him stop in his tracks. A man was approaching her, and something about him made the boy's stomach turn. The man was wearing expensive-looking clothes and a friendly smile, but there was something wrong about that smile. It reminded him of those nature documentaries where predators pretend to be harmless right before they attack. The boy felt his heart starting to beat faster. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across the parking lot, and the cheerful Halloween decorations suddenly didn't seem so cheerful anymore. He knew the next few moments would be crucial. He needed to think fast but act smart. His phone felt heavy in his pocket, and his mom's voice echoed in his head. Sometimes being brave doesn't mean being the strongest. Sometimes it means being the smartest. He took a deep breath and gripped his basketball bag tighter. Whatever was about to happen, he knew he couldn't just walk away. The street was getting quieter as people headed inside for dinner, but he could still hear kids playing somewhere in the distance. A car honked at the intersection, and the store's neon sign kept buzzing. Everything felt like it was moving in slow motion, like in the movies right before something big happens. He thought about all the safety talks they'd had at school, all the warnings about strangers and dangerous situations. This wasn't just about being a hero, it was about doing what's right. His dad always said that real courage isn't about not being scared. It's about doing what needs to be done even when you are scared. The little girl kept shifting from one foot to another, clutching her unicorn backpack like it was a shield. Her eyes darted around the parking lot, probably searching for a familiar face among the few people walking by. The boy remembered how his little sister acted when she was scared, exactly like this. The corner store's windows reflected the setting sun, making it hard to see inside. Usually, the store was busy at this time, with kids buying after-school snacks and parents picking up last-minute dinner ingredients. But today, it seemed quieter than usual. Only the soft hum of the refrigerators and the occasional car passing by broke the silence. He noticed how the little girl's shoelaces were untied, the kind of detail his mom would always point out. "You'll trip and hurt yourself," she'd say. His own mother's voice seemed to guide him, telling him to pay attention to the small things that might be important later. A cool breeze rustled through the trees, making the little girl wrap her arms around herself. She was wearing a light jacket, not enough for the chilly autumn evening that was settling in. The boy remembered the spare sweater in his basketball bag. His mom always made him pack an extra one, just in case. "Better to have it and not need it," she'd say, "than need it and not have it." The streetlights were starting to flicker on, one by one, like drowsy eyes opening. The shadows grew longer and darker, stretching across the parking lot like reaching fingers. In the distance, a dog barked, making the little girl jump slightly. She looked even more nervous now, if that was possible. He could hear his own heartbeat in his ears as he watched a strange man approach her. The man wore an expensive-looking gray suit and shiny black shoes that clicked against the pavement. Everything about him looked perfect, too perfect, like he was trying too hard to seem normal. The boy remembered what his police officer uncle had told him. Sometimes the scariest people are the ones who try to look the least scary. The man was carrying something in his hand, a colorful bag of candy, the kind that any kid would love. The boy felt his stomach tighten. He remembered all those school assemblies about stranger danger, where they talked about how bad people sometimes use treats to trick kids. Back then, it had seemed like something that only happened in movies or faraway places. Not here, not in their neighborhood. Through the store window, he could see Mr. P busy with a customer at the counter. A few cars drove past, their headlights sweeping across the scene like searchlights. The boy wished more people were around, but most families were probably inside, starting their dinner or helping with homework. He watched as the man stopped a few feet away from the girl, that too-perfect smile still on his face. The boy couldn't hear what the man was saying, but he could see how he held out the candy bag, swinging it slightly like a pendulum. The little girl took a small step back, but she kept glancing at the candy. The boy knew that look. The same one his sister got when she was trying to decide if she should do something she knew she shouldn't. The temperature seemed to drop several degrees, or maybe it was just the chill running down his spine. He remembered the self-defense classes his parents made him take last summer. The instructor had said that the best defense was awareness, knowing when something wasn't right and trusting that feeling. Above them, the sky had turned a deeper shade of purple with just a hint of orange left on the horizon. The store's neon sign cast a red glow over the scene, making everything look slightly unreal, like a scene from one of those crime shows his parents watched after he went to bed. His phone felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds in his pocket. Should he call the police? His parents? But what if he was wrong? What if this was just some innocent interaction, and he was letting his imagination run wild? Then he remembered another thing his uncle had told him. Better to be wrong and safe than right and sorry. The man took another step toward the girl, and the boy saw her grip her backpack tighter. That was all he needed to see. His grandfather's words rang in his head. Sometimes doing nothing is the same as doing something wrong. He knew he had to act, but he also knew he had to be smart about it. One wrong move could make things worse. The boy watched as the well-dressed man moved closer to the little girl. Everything about him seemed carefully planned, from his neatly combed hair to his polished shoes that probably cost more than a month's worth of groceries. But there was something off about him, like a puzzle piece that looks right until you try to fit it in. The man's smile never reached his eyes. That's what the boy noticed first. His uncle, who worked at the local police station, had once told him that real smiles make the eyes crinkle at the corners. This man's eyes stayed cold, like two dark marbles stuck in a mask. They kept darting around the parking lot, checking if anyone was watching. "Hey there, sweetie," the man's voice floated across the cooling evening air. His words sounded sticky sweet, like too much honey on toast. "Are you lost? Your mommy sent me to pick you up. She's worried about you." He held out the candy bag, making the wrapped sweets inside rustle temptingly. The boy felt his stomach twist. He'd seen those safety videos at school about strangers using lies like this. The ones about lost puppies or emergencies at home, or, just like now, parents sending someone to pick up their child. His hands felt sweaty around his phone as he pretended to text, moving a bit closer to hear better. The little girl hugged her backpack tighter, taking another small step backward. Smart kid, the boy thought. She knew something wasn't right, even if she couldn't explain why. Like when you wake up at night and just know there's something wrong before you even open your eyes. I have more candy in my car, the man continued, his voice getting lower, more urgent, and some really cool toys too. Your mom told me which ones you like. He reached into his pocket, probably for more bribes, and the boy noticed his hand trembling slightly. That's when he saw something else, a tiny bead of sweat rolling down the man's temple despite the cool evening air. The parking lot was getting darker now. Most of the light came from the store's fluorescent signs and the street lamp overhead, which buzzed like an angry bee. A few cars drove past, the headlights sweeping across the scene, but nobody seemed to notice what was happening. The boy thought about all those times his parents had told him to pay attention to his surroundings, to trust his instincts. The man's perfect appearance started showing cracks under the harsh store lights. His expensive suit had a small coffee stain near the collar. His carefully styled hair was becoming messy from the wind and his nervous habit of running his fingers through it. Every few seconds, he would check his watch like he was running out of time. Come on, sweetie. The man's voice had an edge now, like a knife wrapped in cotton. We don't want your mommy to worry more, do we? She's waiting for you. He took another step forward, and the boy saw the little girl's lower lip start to tremble. She was scared but trying to be brave, just like his little sister when she had to get shots at the doctor's office. The boy remembered what his basketball coach always said about game-changing moments. It's not about waiting for the perfect time, it's about making the time perfect. He knew he had to do something soon. The man was getting more nervous, more insistent, and that made him more dangerous. Through the store window, he could see other customers going about their normal evening shopping, completely unaware of what was happening outside. A mom with a shopping basket. An old man checking milk expiration dates. A teenager choosing between different flavors of chips. Normal people doing normal things, while something very not normal was unfolding just a few feet away. The man's shoes made soft clicking sounds on the pavement as he shifted his weight from foot to foot. His breathing was getting faster, more shallow. The boy could see his chest rising and falling rapidly under his expensive suit, like a runner before a race or a predator before it pounces. All those lessons from school, all those talks from his parents and his uncle, all those what-if scenarios they discussed, they were becoming real right in front of him. He felt scared, but also strangely calm. Like his body knew what to do even if his mind was racing with 1,000 thoughts. The boy's mind raced faster than during any basketball game he'd ever played. He needed a plan, something smart and safe. His phone felt heavy in his hand as he pretended to text, actually opening his camera app instead. His dad had taught him how to take quick photos without looking directly at the screen, a trick that was about to become very useful. The evening air grew colder as he watched the man trying to convince the little girl. He remembered what his teacher had said during their safety class. Sometimes the best defense is making others aware without putting yourself in danger. His fingers moved quickly, sending a quick text to his mom with his location. Better safe than sorry, he thought. Through the store's windows, he could see Mr. P still at the counter, now organizing some shelves. The boy had known the store owner since he was younger than the little girl. Every morning, Mr. P would wave to all the kids walking to school, always keeping an eye out for them. He could be a good ally right now. The boy adjusted his basketball bag on his shoulder, making sure his phone was recording video. His hands were sweaty, but his mind was clear. He thought about all those superhero movies he loved watching, how the heroes always had to think before they acted. Being brave doesn't mean being reckless, his mom would say whenever he did something without thinking it through. As he moved closer, he could hear more of what the man was saying. Look, I have your favorite candy. Your mom told me you love these. The man's voice was getting more insistent, less smooth than before. The boy noticed how the man's expensive watch caught the store's neon light. It was almost 6 p.m. Most families would be having dinner now, which explained why the parking lot was so empty. He remembered a trick his basketball coach taught them about staying calm under pressure. Breathe in for 4 counts, hold for 4, out for 4, he whispered to himself. His heart was racing, but his mind stayed focused. He had a plan forming, not perfect, but better than doing nothing. Looking around, he noticed a couple walking their dog on the other side of the street. The woman was wearing bright workout clothes, easy to spot and remember. The man was tall and looked strong. More potential helpers, just like his uncle had taught him. Safety in numbers, he'd said. The more eyes watching, the better. The boy's phone buzzed. His mom had replied. Just knowing she was aware of where he was made him feel braver. He thought about his little sister, how he'd feel if she was the one in danger. That thought made his next steps crystal clear. He slipped his phone into his pocket, making sure it was still recording. The sound of cars passing by on the main road mixed with the evening wind rustling through the trees. A perfect background noise that could help carry his voice when he needed it. He adjusted his cap, took one more deep breath, and remembered what his grandfather always said, the right thing and the easy thing are rarely the same thing. The store's bell chimed as someone walked out, perfect timing. More witnesses meant more safety. He thought about all the self-defense classes his parents made him take last summer. The instructor had said the loudest weapon you have is your voice. It was time to use that weapon. His shoes made soft squeaking sounds on the pavement as he moved into position, not too close to be in danger, but close enough to act. The little girl's eyes met his for a split second, and he saw a glimmer of hope there. She was scared but smart. She knew something was wrong and was waiting for help. The man was getting frustrated now, his perfect mask starting to crack. The boy could see his hands clenching and unclenching, his smile becoming more forced. It was time to act. Everything he'd learned, every safety lesson, every bit of advice from his family, it all came down to this moment. The boy took one final deep breath and stepped forward with confidence he didn't quite feel. His heart was pounding, but his voice came out strong and clear, just like when he gave presentations in class. "Hey there, I've been looking everywhere for you," he called out cheerfully, waving at the little girl like he'd known her forever. The man's head snapped up, his perfect smile freezing on his face. The boy could see the calculations running behind those cold eyes, trying to figure out if this kid was really connected to the girl or just interfering. The neon lights from the store cast strange shadows across the man's face, making him look like a Halloween mask that was starting to melt. "Your mom asked me to walk you home," the boy continued, his voice getting louder with each word. He remembered his drama teacher's advice about projecting his voice, speak from your belly, not your throat. "She's been calling everyone in the neighborhood looking for you." He made sure his voice carried across the parking lot, catching the attention of the couple walking their dog. The little girl's eyes lit up with hope, even though she'd never seen him before. Kids are smart that way. They can tell when someone's truly trying to help. She took a small step away from the man, her unicorn backpack swinging with the movement. The man's expensive suit suddenly seemed to fit him all wrong, like he was shrinking inside it. "I was just trying to help," he said, but his voice had lost its sweetness. Now it sounded thin and reedy, like air escaping from a balloon. His eyes darted around the parking lot, noticing how the couple with the dog had stopped to watch. Inside the store, Mr. P had moved closer to the window, his hands resting on the counter, but his eyes fixed on the scene outside. The boy could see him reaching for something under the counter, probably the phone to call for help. More cars were pulling into the parking lot now, their headlights creating a bright stage for what was happening. "Come on over here," the boy called to the girl, making sure to stay in the well-lit area near the store entrance. He pulled out his phone, pretending to make a call, but actually starting a video recording. "I'll call your mom right now. She gave me her number when she asked me to find you." The man's face twitched. His hand closed around the candy bag so tight that the wrappers crackled loudly in the evening air. "I was only trying to help," he repeated, but now his words tumbled out too fast, like he was running out of breath. "I should go. I'm late for something." His perfect appearance was completely undone now, hair messy, tie crooked, sweat visible on his forehead despite the cool evening. The little girl moved quickly, almost running to stand beside the boy. He could feel her trembling slightly as she got closer, but her chin was up, brave even when scared. The boy thought about his little sister again, how she always tried to act tough even when she was frightened. More people were gathering now. The couple with the dog had crossed the street and were standing nearby, that big friendly dog acting as a furry barrier between the man and the children. Mr. P had come out of his store, his phone visible in his hand as he spoke quietly but urgently into it. The man started backing away, his shiny shoes making scraping sounds on the pavement. His face had gone pale under the fluorescent lights, all pretense of being helpful completely gone. "This is all a misunderstanding," he muttered, but nobody was listening to him anymore. The sound of distant sirens was growing louder, getting closer with each passing second. The boy kept his phone pointed at the man, remembering what his uncle had taught him about gathering evidence. He made sure to get a clear shot of the man's face, his car, and especially his license plate as he hurried to his vehicle. The expensive car's engine roared to life, but it was too late. Red and blue lights were already reflecting off the store windows. Police cars pulled into the parking lot with their lights flashing, painting everything in alternating red and blue. The boy stood protectively near the little girl, his phone still recording everything. His hands were shaking a little now that it was all over, but he kept his voice steady and calm for the girl's sake. Store owner Mr. P was already talking to the first officer who arrived, pointing toward the direction where the man's car had sped away. More police cars zoomed past the store, following the escape route. The couple with the dog stayed nearby, providing a sense of safety with their presence. "You did really good," the boy told the little girl softly. She was still clutching her unicorn backpack, but her shoulders had relaxed a little. "Really brave, just like a superhero." He noticed she had tiny star stickers on her shoes, probably put there during art class. Focusing on these small details helped keep both of them calm while the grown-ups handled everything else. A female police officer approached them, kneeling down to their level. She had kind eyes and spoke in a gentle voice that reminded the boy of his favorite school librarian. "I heard we have a very brave young man here," she said, smiling warmly. "Can you tell me everything that happened?" The boy played back the video he'd recorded on his phone. The officer's eyes widened as she watched, immediately calling over her partner. "This is excellent evidence," she said, her voice filled with admiration. "You thought very quickly and very smartly." More people from the neighborhood had gathered around, drawn by the police lights and sirens. The boy could hear them whispering, piecing together what had happened. An older lady brought out bottles of water from the store. Someone else grabbed snacks. It was like the whole neighborhood had turned into one big family, looking out for its youngest members. The little girl's parents arrived in a rush of tears and hugs. Her mom couldn't stop thanking the boy, her words tumbling over each other. Her dad kept wiping his eyes, trying to hide his tears but failing. The boy understood. He'd seen his own dad get emotional when his little sister had gotten lost at the mall once, even though they'd found her just 5 minutes later, hiding inside a clothes rack. "We live just 3 blocks away," the mother explained between hugs. "She was playing in the front yard while I was gardening. I looked away for just a minute." Her voice broke off, and the boy could see the guilt in her eyes. He remembered what his mom always said about accidents. They can happen to anyone, even the most careful parents. The police were taking statements from everyone: Mr. P, the couple with the dog, other witnesses who'd seen the man's car. The boy noticed how his hands had stopped shaking. Instead, he felt a warm feeling in his chest, knowing he'd done the right thing. His phone buzzed again, probably his mom wondering why he wasn't home yet. Wait until she heard about this. More neighbors kept arriving, forming a protective circle around the children. Someone had brought blankets from their car. Another person showed up with hot chocolate from the coffee shop down the street. The boy heard snippets of conversation about organizing a neighborhood watch program, setting up better lighting in the parking lot, and creating a phone tree for emergencies. The female officer was still taking notes, but she paused to smile at the boy again. "You know," she said, "we've been looking for this man in other neighborhoods too. Thanks to your quick thinking and that video, we'll probably catch him very soon. You might have saved more than one child today." 2 weeks later, the boy sat in the police station's community room, surrounded by proud faces and flashing cameras. The chief of police stood at a small podium, telling everyone how the boy's quick thinking and bravery had led to catching the man who'd been troubling several neighborhoods in the area. Thanks to the boy's clear video and quick actions, the police had caught the man trying to leave town that same night. His expensive car turned out to be as fake as his friendly smile. It was a rental, meant to make him look trustworthy. The officers found evidence in the car linking him to similar attempts in other cities. The boy didn't feel much like a hero, though everyone kept calling him one. He'd just done what felt right, what his parents and teachers had taught him to do. His little sister now looked at him like he was some kind of superhero, which was pretty cool, but also made him realize how important it was to protect those who couldn't protect themselves. The local elementary school had invited him to speak to the younger kids about safety. At first, he felt nervous. Speaking in front of crowds wasn't his favorite thing. But when he saw all those little faces looking up at him, hanging on to every word, he knew it was important. He told them about trusting their instincts, about the buddy system, about telling grown-ups when something doesn't feel right. His basketball coach had turned their next practice into a special safety awareness session. The whole team learned about being alert, working together, and watching out for each other. Just like on the court, Coach said, "We're stronger when we look out for each other." The team started walking home in groups after practice, making sure everyone got home safely. The neighborhood had changed too. Mr. P installed better lighting around his store and put up security cameras. Parents organized a schedule to watch the kids at the park after school. The couple with the dog started timing their walks around when kids were going to and from school. Even the grumpy old man on the corner joined the new neighborhood watch program. The little girl and her family stayed in touch. Her parents had gotten her a new puppy, a big friendly dog that would grow up to protect her. She'd named it Hero, which made the boy blush every time he heard it. She was doing better now, back to being the happy kid she was meant to be. Sometimes she waved to him from her yard when he passed by on his way to basketball practice. Local news stations wanted to interview him, but he didn't feel comfortable with all that attention. Instead, he worked with his uncle at the police station to create a safety awareness program for kids. They called it Young Heroes, not because they wanted kids to be heroes, but because they wanted to teach them how to be smart and brave when needed. His mom had framed the certificate of bravery the police gave him, hanging it right next to his basketball trophies. But the boy thought the real reward was seeing how the community had come together. People who used to just wave and walk by now stopped to chat. Neighbors exchanged phone numbers and started group chats to keep each other informed about what was happening in the area. The boy's grandfather had tears in his eyes when he heard the whole story. "You know," he said, his voice rough with emotion, "being brave isn't about not being scared. It's about doing the right thing even when you are scared." The boy understood that now better than ever. As autumn turned to winter, the incident became a story that parents told their kids, not to scare them, but to teach them about being smart and brave. The boy went back to his normal routine of school, basketball practice, and helping out at home. But something had changed inside him. He realized that heroes don't always wear capes or have superpowers.